Unit 3. Modern Spain. The 19th Century. Page 5.
We live in the modern age, a period which started in 1789 with the French Revolution and continues to the present day. During the 19th century, there were important political changes, as people demanded more rights and freedoms in many European countries. There were also wars. For example, Spain's War of Independence against the French. There were many important inventions, for example, the steam engine. Because of these technological advances, products were made in factories instead of by hand. Many people moved from the countryside to work in new factories and industries in the cities. Transport and communications also changed with the expansion of railways and the invention of the telephone. Education improved, although it was still limited to the upper classes.
The modern or contemporary age starts in 1789 with the French Revolution. Important events of the 19th century. In 1808 starts the War of Independence and ends in 1814. 1833 to 1839, the First Carlist War. In 1868, Isabel II left Spain. In 1874, the Restoration started. In 1898, the Spanish-American War happens.
A.
Napoleon Bonaparte became Emperor of France in 1804.
B.
Napoleon signed the Treaty of Fontainebleau with Spain 3 years later, in 1807.
C.
Then, in 1812, the Constitution of Cádiz was approved.
D.
Isabel II became queen when her father died in 1833.
E.
The Spanish First Republic began in 1873, but it didn't last very long.
F.
In 1874, the monarchy was restored and Alfonso XII became king.
Page 6. How did the modern age begin? The French Revolution marked the beginning of the modern age. The revolution began in 1789 when the French people rebelled against their king, Louis XVI. In the late 18th century, much of Europe was in crisis. The French king, Louis XVI, ruled as an absolute monarch. All power was concentrated in the king. There were huge social inequalities between the nobility and the ordinary people, who were extremely poor. On the 14th of July, 1789, the people of Paris attacked the Bastille prison, a symbol of the French king's power. The revolt spread from Paris to other parts of France. Eventually, the monarchy was abolished and the king was killed in 1793. As a result of the revolution, France became a republic. Power was separated into legislative, executive, and judicial branches. The law recognized all citizens as equal, and the nobility lost their special privileges. Ordinary people could vote in elections, but only men, not women. The central ideas of the French Revolution were liberty, equality, and fraternity. These ideas became popular in other countries as well. Page 7.
Napoleon Bonaparte was a military commander during the French Revolution. He became Emperor of France in 1804. Napoleon wanted to establish a big empire that included other European countries. Spain was ruled by Carlos IV. But his Prime Minister, Manuel de Godoy, was really in control. In 1807, Napoleon signed the Treaty of Fontainebleau with Godoy. This allowed the French army to cross Spain to conquer Portugal. But once the French army was there, Napoleon decided to conquer Spain as well. When Napoleon's army entered Spain, many people were unhappy with Carlos IV and his minister Godoy. In March 1808, there was a revolt in Aranjuez. Carlos IV was forced to abdicate as a result of the revolt. His son, Fernando VII, became king. But then Napoleon invited Carlos and Fernando to France. He forced them both to abdicate. Napoleon made his brother, Joseph Bonaparte, King of Spain instead. After that, the Spanish people were divided. People who favored Fernando VII were called patriotas, or patriots. People who favored King Joseph, Napoleon's brother, were called afrancesados.